I'm really excited today to have David, who's the founder and CEO of Groas.ai, and you can check them out at GROAS.ai. Fantastic name for a platform that is dealing with return on ad spend. I like it. And so they're actually an AI agents platform that's built specifically to make people more money when they're using Google Ads. And so you can learn more, and we'll have some links down below in the description for how you check them out. Really impressive. They very quickly scaled to now have over $10 million a month in ad spend on their platform, and they've been totally bootstrapped today. I think David's dealing with a lot of inbound demand. We're going to get his perspective today, not only on his business, but actually dive into the Google ecosystem. There's a lot of things that are moving in this area, which is exciting for people that have followed Google, paid ad spend, SEO over the past decade or so. A lot of changes coming, a lot of new interesting movements there. David's the perfect person to give us some perspective on that today, and a little bit more background on David. Prior to starting this business, he was a private equity investor. He worked at HIG Capital, which managed over $70 billion of assets under management. He also has been an active e-commerce entrepreneur. He's scaled several different stores to 7 figures of revenue across multiple verticals. So he's coming with a lot of different perspective to today's conversation. Well, welcome, David. Great to have you on.
Thanks, Arnold. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, well, let's start right in. I think everybody is watching what is happening with Google, what the sorts of changes are to advertising that's coming up. Everybody's thinking about what search is really going to look like in an AI world as things like ChatGPT and Perplexity start to take off and gain more and more steam. Where do you think Google is going to be in terms of search when we look out a couple years from now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's a question I also actually get a lot, even from some of our current customers. I think Google, when ChatGPT first launched, was really trying to figure it out. They weren't sure, but I think after seeing that a lot of people are starting to use those platforms just for day-to-day search, and that number keeps on growing, it's going to for sure be moving more towards a conversational type of search. They've already started to try implement. So AI overviews is, I guess, they're sort of them dabbling into that, them basically going out, finding all the information for you, and then just displaying it up front. I think in 3 years' time, you can probably imagine Google being exactly what ChatGPT is today. That's what we're doing. So it's
Okay.
and they're having to and that ultimately has a massive impact on their big money maker, which is Google Ads.
Yeah. So how do you see the ads business then morphing with that, right? Like if you're starting there and saying like, okay, what is the consumer experience going to be? And we feel like, okay, we could just jump to the answer there. We know where that's going and what that direction is going to be. Talk to me a little bit more about how companies are going to look to Google for advertising. How do you think Google is going to adapt with that? And what does that look like for businesses that use Google, for advertising, today and are pretty heavily reliant on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that the short answer is Google becoming less of a traffic director, but more of an answer monopoly. That's the cleanest way of putting it. But an answer monopoly with the world's best ad targeting, right? I mean, the data they have, that they've been able to collect over so many years, I think puts them in a very good place. They're investing crazy amounts into AI. I think it was $85 billion, I think, into actual hardware and setting up all these projects. So they are very well placed. I think they had probably a bad start. A lot of people sort of put them out of the race, but I think it's crazy to say that because I think, yeah, from what we can see, they're definitely catching up.
Go into a little bit more detail there. Like, what is it that you're seeing, right? I mean, you're really on the front lines of like understanding some of the more subtle nuances and changes with Google Ads now. What have you seen happening over the past couple months that like makes you think that they are moving quickly on this and adapting?
Yeah, so I mean, one thing for sure, and I have personally seen this because at Groas we have so many different types of customers across all sorts of business models, whatever it is. So I get a pretty good glimpse into what these accounts are doing at high levels of spend. AI overviews are responsible for bringing down click-through rates by quite a bit, because especially for longer tail type of keywords, before you're searching for what is the best, whatever, and it's like a long type of sentence, AI overview comes up. And then that ad, which previously may have shown, is now no longer showing, or it's showing underneath that.
Okay.
That's the big issue. I think that's the big thing they're trying to solve. Second is for actual publishers, right? A lot of them are not getting the citations they used to, right? So all these blog posts, whatever, Google is now just automatically just taking all that information, packaging it, and basically spitting it out itself. That's for a lot of these publisher sites. So I think on the SEO and organic side, I think they're also going to have to figure out a way, and they did it with YouTube, which is some form of monetization for these sorts of sites. They get into the AI overview and get clicks, then they should pay out the publisher. That's, I think, something I see happening that they have to do. There's just no way around it. But those are the two big things. I would say AI overviews has definitely been disrupting search, no doubt about it. And I think the next step is they're going to be embedding ads into what would look very similar to like a ChatGPT interface.
How would the embedding of those ads work for the advertiser, right? Like, let's say I'm an e-commerce company. I want to put money to work at Google. What does that look like? Like, how do I kind of think about making sure that my products or my brand is kind of being focused in answers in that case? How am I really thinking about kind of measuring the effectiveness of that ad spend in that world?
Yeah, that's the $1 trillion question. I think it's going to be really hard. I don't think anyone has the answers just yet. I mean, we already see it with a lot of people trying to optimize their existing websites for these AI engines. It's a bit of a black box, actually. I mean, people say they have ways of doing that. Luckily, actually, at Groas, we have a lot of our traffic comes from AI engines, which is great. There's something there that they like, but we don't really understand why that is yet. I think a big thing that is a big trend I see over the next few years is this idea of, and we see actually with Perplexity and their comic browser and everything they're doing now, we see AI agents just going out and taking action on behalf of you. So it's going to be like AI to AI advertising, which is going to be quite. So I think, how do you optimize for that? I think it's still quite early to say. We don't know. Google was releasing a new search ads product, which is huge news. They did this back in June, rolling out a beta called AI Search Max, promising good results. But again, I think it's still quite early to say how we can best optimize for that.
Yeah. If you think about some of the companies that are trying to help people to really make sure that they're presented properly within the LLMs, like I almost think about it as like SEO for LLMs. What do you make of that space? Like, it's kind of tangential to what you guys are doing? Do you think that there's something real there, or do you think it's a black box and like a lot of smoke and mirrors? How do you see that space evolving, and is it going to be kind of like an SEO and paid ads kind of dynamic where the two both can kind of work together to some degree and are established like that? Or do you think that ultimately like advertising specifically into LLMs will beat out any of the kind of like organic methods to to be placed within LLMs?
Yeah, I think it's really tough. I mean, if I were building a company doing that, and I know there are a few out there, it's tough because the LLMs, the algorithms keep changing on the back end, what they look for, right? The obvious ones are things like Reddit and Quora, right? So everyone knows that the LLMs love getting their answers from there because it's crowdsourced information. I think OpenAI have a pretty good agreement with Reddit, both, I'm pretty sure. So obviously the play is finding ways of getting yourself on Reddit and Quora, and making it look real and authentic, and people speaking about your brand in a good way. I actually think that's probably what's happening with Groas, by the way. It's coming up in a lot of those LLM searches. But I think Reddit, Quora, those sorts of forums, I think any sort of forum where you have real user interactions, I think LLMs probably prioritize those over, let's say, I post a blog post from the Groas website talking about why grass is the best in the world. It's probably going to defer to actually what the forums are saying and what the crowdsourced information is saying. So look, it's an interesting space.
So do you see that in some sense, like, is a way to think about that those types of companies or maybe others will basically be astroturfing. Like the way to solve that is essentially like, hey, like let's spin up a bot, army, or we've got this network of people that are going to post positive stuff about this company on Reddit. And then we know that's kind of like the way that it'll get picked up by the LLMs and then talked about. And that's kind of how it works. Like you're almost kind of creating this synthetic content in places where the LLM is looking for it to be able to boost your company up or otherwise with it. Like, is that the way do you see that being the way the world would go there?
From what I'm seeing now, that does seem to be quite effective, more effective than you might think. I think another
Yeah.
thing that a lot of people don't focus on enough is actually video content. So
Okay.
I've definitely seen a few examples of LLMs surfacing info from there.
Okay.
And LLMs get better and better actually, let's say, transcribing entire videos.
Yeah.
And that's going to be even more powerful.
Yeah.
Um, so I think, LLMs are going to 100% keep taking more search traffic. That's just the reality.
Yeah.
I think the reason why a lot of these LLM companies are valued at what they're valued
Yeah.
is because eventually they will be embedding advertising. I think that's the end goal. That's the play. I think what Perplexity is doing with Comet is really interesting because they're like they're removing everything happens through that rather than some kind
Yeah.
of a process, and the agents just take that for you. So I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say
Do you
that.
see them at like I'm a big fan of Comet. Have used it really since it's come out. Like I think it's a great addition and kind of like an interesting mental model for a co-pilot.
Mm,
I use that word obviously not referring to Microsoft, but just like that type of experience of like having the assistant there while you're going. And I did note, I have noticed in some sense like it's actually pretty effective at pulling information out of video. Like I tend to use that quite a bit, like in my workflows or otherwise. It goes to YouTube. It can find things on there and kind of queue up exactly where
yeah,
to go with it. That's pretty effective. So that it wouldn't surprise me, I guess, what you're saying of like that more of that kind of cascades into is looking in all sorts of different places for content, maybe more effectively than we might think of traditionally with just like text search.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also actually it touches on something else, which I mean, there are so many unanswered questions because the field just it moves at crazy pace. I think one thing as well that they'll probably be able to do quite well is more intention based advertising, i.e.,
Okay.
they know a platform like Comment will probably know what you
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
before you know you want it, based off
Yeah.
of your own historical browsing patterns and whatever it is you're looking at.
Yeah.
That I mean, Google to an extent try and do that,
Yeah.
but I think if you Comet will probably be in a better position for that.
Yeah. And so like if you kind of step back and like really think about the positioning for your company today, right? Like let's assume before you started, what brought you into kind of more of the paid space versus let's say the SEO space? Because it's two different sides of it, right? If we kind of think about the LLMs, was it more that you just saw, hey, having this like being able to kind of put content into an LLM kind of in more of that SEO mindset is just not going to be effective in the long run if these guys are going to end up moving towards an advertising model?
Mm.
Walk me through just some of the like early decision making days as you were getting it started. Was it always clear right from the outset that you wanted to work within the paid ad space for this? Like maybe just bring me back to some of those early moments and walk me through a little bit your thought process there.
Yeah, sure. I think for me, it just came down to the fact that paid ads is what I'd done the most of,
Okay.
particularly in ecom.
Yeah.
Most of the game is paid ads, especially I think at the lower levels, right? Once you
Hmm.
start to get to, I think, 8-figure a year brands, then I think organic probably starts to become more important. But
Hmm.
a lot of people, you can quickly run up a store to big numbers if you know what you're
Yeah.
doing with ads. And
Yeah.
that is still true today.
Yeah.
Um, so ultimately, it came from the fact that that's just what I understood best. Being on all the platforms, I think Meta is a really good platform, but it's one of those where you actually have, especially more and more, little control over
Hmm.
over what it's doing.
Yeah.
Way to win with Meta today is just creative. It's pretty much the only defining factor is get a good photo, get a good video up, get some good UGC content,
Yeah.
post it, set a budget, and then Meta will take care of basically everything. That's kind of
Yeah.
the way to play with Meta these days. Google's more complicated, a lot more complicated. Also coincides with the fact that Google's actually the one that I personally spent the most money on over the years.
Okay.
So I knew Google Ads really well before actually getting into this.
Yeah. Okay.
Obviously, in Google Ads, there's search, shopping, PMAX, all these different types. But search, I think, is the one sort of ad where Google gives the advertiser the most amount of control.
Okay.
At least today. That might change.
Mhm.
So let's touch base 6 months or so, but we'll see.
Yeah.
It came more from the fact that I knew Google really well. The other platforms, I mean, TikTok as well is something I'd used and spent a pretty healthy budget on. It's a big thing in e-com. But with TikTok, I think it's still quite new. They're still quite new in terms of their ads. It's quite wild. The algorithm isn't super stable. So I never really thought about trying to mess around with that, because I still believe that with Meta and TikTok, creative is actually the defining factor, rather than what you can be doing with search, which is all the stuff that we started putting with Groas.
Yeah. And how do you kind of think about that evolution of like platforms? Like in general, do you think most people are better off really focusing in on one platform for advertising? Or what point do you start to kind of feel like, hey, it makes sense to kind of broaden out and start to use like multiple channels here?
Yeah, great question. I think that the most important thing is like what niche you in. Some things work great for some niches and some don't. I think the first thing to do is establish what niche you are. But I'm a big believer personally in doubling down on what's working. That is my 100%. If you have a campaign that is running profitable, you just add more budget and you just keep scaling until something breaks. I'm a massive believer in that. Obviously, at a certain point of scale, once you're like a well-known brand, then you have to start to think about diversifying your channels, running a lot of things. But I know and have seen it personally many times, like one product, one geography, one channel, one PS channel, and people doing some very, very serious numbers just with that. So I would say doubling down is probably my preferred method, I think.
Okay. Maybe could you like take me a little bit into your product and like whether as it's built now or where you're really trying to take it? Like for someone that really is kind of thinking, okay, I've got one product, I'm looking to do paid advertisement. Help me to kind of understand how you guys fit in that journey. If I'm looking to kind of find that one killer campaign that I can, just like turn up as much as possible and feel like I'm kind of maximizing on. What is that experience for me as a customer if I'm coming into that, let's say as like a e-commerce brand with a specific product that I'm looking to move?
Sure. So the first feature we ever built with Groas, and it came from one of my own pain points. It's actually quite funny. I used to have a brand here in the UK. Actually, I've got one on my desk. It was have you heard of Manscaped? Is quite big in the US.
You hear a lot of ads for it. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
So I had here one of my smaller brands was a male intimate trimmer here in the UK. I was actually with this particular product that I started to come up with ideas for Groas. What I saw actually for this product when I was digging into the Google Ads reports and trying to figure things out was that people were coming in and buying this from a whole range of different angles, right? Someone would search for, it's actually here if you're curious.
There you go. Okay.
Someone would have searched for, let's say, chest hair shaver, and then they'd end up and they're gonna buy a product. Someone searched for arm hair shaver. Someone would search for leg hair shaver, whatever it is. But or actually a big one was gifting, right? Actually partnering with their partner. So people are coming in and buying this very, very simple product, right? Very basic product from a whole bunch of different angles. So the first feature and the thing that came to me when building Groas was this idea that we could customize the landing page experience for the exact intent that the user had. Idea being, hopefully, you'd be increasing the conversion rates, and that thesis is actually held true. So if you set up Groas for, let's say, for your product, and someone, let's say, would have searched up arm hair shaver, everything on that, we take the original landing page, and everything on that landing page now talks about why this is the best thing in the world for arm hair shaving.
Right?
It's the exact same product, but everything now, all the copy, everything is now said in a way that it's going to convince you to buy because it's the best thing for arm hair shaving.
Got it. Okay.
That was the first ever, feature, if you want to call it that, Since then, it's evolved quite a bit. It's changed quite a
And
lot.
give me a, I want to keep going with this, but like maybe just give me some hint of what kind of lift are we talking about here by customizing landing page, or like, is this like a couple percent here or there? Are we talking like doubling? Like what kind of space are we really talking about here that will like off of an improvement like that?
Real quick, sorry, there's actually one thing I actually forgot to mention in this particular feature, which will answer this as well. So not only did I decide that we should be customizing the landing page experience based on that, I also said that we should be customizing the actual ad itself. So
Okay.
now, if someone searches up arm hair shaver, the
Yeah.
first ad that you see, everything
Yeah.
in the copy about that ad is out now talking about arm hair shaving.
Yeah. So now I'm like, oh, David built the product just for me. Like, I can't believe someone has thought about exactly what I needed when I just needed it right here. Okay. So you got that like emotional resonance of like, oh yeah, like this is exactly the thing I wanted. Which
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct. So there's two metrics we're actually touching there just by doing that, which is
Yep.
one, click-through rates. So you boost the click-through rate. Why? Because all of a sudden people are more likely to click on the ad because the ad speaks exactly to their own search intent.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, you're boosting the conversion rate on the landing page once they do click on there, because now again, everything there speaks to their exact search intent.
Yeah.
Those are very measurable. Now it depends a lot in the niche, but those two things, and actually from what we've seen, is actually the stuff on the landing page is perhaps even more impactful.
Okay.
Again, it's so hard to say because we have some customers who don't like their landing page is useless for them. They just try to get calls from their ads. So therefore that the first bit is most important on the click-through rate stuff. A lot of e-com customers, the landing page stuff becomes more important. So it's hard to say. It's a very serious lift. It's a very serious lift. Depends a lot on the niche, depends on the landing page. Like it's very flexible, but in general, the thesis has held very true.
Okay. So, and I guess I hadn't really thought of like sometimes the conversion is call, like it's like a call to action where it's like, yeah, you're expecting somebody to pick up the phone or otherwise text a number or something like that to take the next step, not necessarily like an e-commerce checkout.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And so how does the AI aspect of this work? Like, is it pre-built? Like, have you guys used AI behind the scenes to like pre-build a bunch of templates for it and then like more dynamically figure out which one to insert? Is it like generating these things on the fly? Maybe just like walk me through a little bit of like, what's the tech here that would have been really hard to do, a year or two ago that now is quite a bit easier on the AI side?
Yeah, I think the short answer is writing good copy is very hard. Okay,
Yeah.
very hard. Humans struggle with writing good copy.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not an obvious problem to solve. So that was the first thing that we had to kind of figure out how we're going to go about this, because I had this as well when we were first starting and getting on demos. It's like, oh, so you're just it's an open AI API call. I said, okay, good luck. So if you try replicate this product, put an open API and see what it comes back with. It's not so good. So the short answer is basically being able to write good copy, and it's still working on, like, to this day. We've trained our own models on this, but it's something that we're constantly trying to figure out how to improve. And this is actually going to become even more important because up until now we've been trying to give people a decent level of control, right? But in a not too distant future, I think Groas is going to be doing everything, like everything. For example, now copy still needs manual approval, right? If Groas is going to go ahead and generate, let's say, a landing page for you, the user still has to go and actually be like, okay, fine, this looks good, or I don't like this. You give it feedback, it will learn.
Got it. So there's like human still in the loop. Like the AI is doing all the work for you, but the human's still in the loop to say like, yep, let's put budget against this. Let's, roll this out.
Only for now. I mean, to be honest, it was my objective from the start that we should not do that. The only reason that I think in 2-3 months' time, that's gone, to be honest. The only reason that we haven't done that quicker is actually because having a human in the loop has helped us build a better product, right? We learn from it. Exactly.
I totally get it. I've had the same thing in my experience of like, it's basically like it's helping you through that evals process because it does force a certain discipline of like kind of knowing like, okay, it's not just YOLO mode, I guess, where you're basically like, yeah, like let's just take whatever it comes back with. Like you're having more of that kind of deeper evaluation and thinking about how to tweak and adjust. Like in my experience, sometimes it's like prompt engineering or moving the context around for what you're really kind of including in there that can have those interesting results. So not surprised at all that that's been the progression. Do you feel like that's something that's coming more from the client standpoint? Like when you talk to some of your customers, do you feel the pull that they're like, I just kind of want to YOLO this and like I don't want to be involved or otherwise with it? Or do you guys feel like maybe that's something more internally, like you guys have the vision to want to get it to? Like maybe just walk me through how those discussions go with some of your customers and like where the push and pull is for where they want control and maybe where they want this thing to kind of just work on autopilot.
Yeah, good question. I mean, I've been surprised with how much trust a lot of these customers are willing to put into Groas and the product. I
Yeah.
think the answer is people are happy for Groas to
Yeah.
pretty YOLO.
Okay.
It's actually more come from us putting the brakes on this stuff, and
Okay.
because then we've learned so much. The product has changed an incredible amount even from when we first released it.
Yeah.
So we've learned so much just by putting more control with the user for now.
Yeah.
I do think once things have stabilized, we've grown our user base. Another thing as well that's going to become really interesting is, and we need to think about like the GDPR issues and that, but given we are collecting so much data from all these campaigns
Hmm.
for so many different niches, so many different types of customers, geographies,
Hmm.
etc. Groas is then, as an engine by itself, going to start to learn like what is working. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
we can start to apply those recommendations to maybe underperforming accounts.
Hmm.
Uh, that I think is going to be a bit of a game changer.
Yeah. So you're kind of like automating some of the things that an agency would have done previously, right? Or have said that they were doing, right? Like that, they have a purview, like they're looking out over a landscape and kind of helping you to manage it. And otherwise, well, a lot of kind of downsides to that sort of agency model, with it. But where do you see, like, is that a story that you think some of the customers have heard before? It's just you're able to actually deliver on it because of the different technology you're using, or do people want an agency for this? Like, give me a little bit more of an insight into just like where you're seeing the clients and customers having those conversations and what they're really looking for at this point.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, look, I think maybe some of the basic features that Groas has. I wouldn't not necessarily that basic, but for example, it can
Mhm.
go and every day it runs a big report. It looks at everywhere where your campaign may be losing budget, and
Yeah,
it recommends, hey, look, you should be blocking these 20 keywords based on what you're selling, what Groas understands about your campaign, takes into account
sure.
all different variables. That
Yeah,
an agency in theory should be doing that for you. Groas is actually there doing it 24/7. That's, I
yeah,
think,
yeah,
a more basic level.
yeah,
Um, but there's other things that Groas is doing, e.g., for example, building out all these custom dynamic landing pages that an agency just physically can't do, right? It can't go out and build
yeah,
a thousand.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Now, again, I have to be a little careful what I say here because I'm not here to say, hey, like screw the agencies, whatever, because ultimately I think as Groas grows, it's going to be something that's used more and more by who has agencies to actually just
Yeah.
their own time.
That's
And
where I mean, I'd like to go a little bit further on that. Like, what do you view as like the future for agencies? Like, do you see it as kind of like they're going to be doing some of the client management, let's say, and you're powering things kind of behind the scenes? How do you see that ecosystem evolving, or is that not really where it goes, and that you're going to have savvy buyers, on the customer side that are really kind of saying like, okay, like I have ad dollars to spend. I'm going to think about the different platforms that I could do it on, what's going to help me do that more effectively. And they're going to be, looking to make some of those decisions themselves and manage it in that way. Like, where do you see that space evolving? And like, is there a future for the agency? Or does and does that future look very different for how they're positioned today?
yeah, that one's tough. I did say earlier, I'm not here to trash agencies. I'm not
Yeah,
going to do
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But I would say, like, I've seen so much just running Groas because, like, I have seen so much nonsense that a
Hmm.
lot. I would say that for the agencies that are good and that know what they're
Hmm.
doing, they're
Hmm.
going to be fine, regardless of Groas, regardless of what Google does, regardless of anything. They're always going to be fine, especially for the more I think bigger spending customers. I think where there's a lot of crap, I've got to be honest, where there's a lot of crap is at the lower end, i.e., 90% of the agencies who are dealing with customer spending, let's say 5K a month, charging
Yeah.
them quite big fees for that, and also for not
Yeah.
doing much.
Yeah.
again, the only reason I say that is just from experience of what I've seen. The amount of people who have come to us from agencies, and then I take a look at their Google Ads account, like they let me in.
Yeah.
Someone on the team will have a look, and it's just complete chaos, complete nonsense, like complete nonsense. And I'm like, hold on, you paid this person / agency how much? Over how long? And this is, and then you're like, why am I not getting results with Google Ads? Is Google Ads wrong? No, Google Ads is probably the best ad engine that we've ever seen. But it's just,
you're using it wrong. You're using it wrong. Yeah. Okay.
So I think there's a lot of this, I think the smaller type end agencies who are, I want to call them cowboys, to be honest, who are doing, I think, stuff that isn't right. I think they're definitely a bit more at risk for sure. I think not even just because of what we're doing here at Groas, which I think is great. Google themselves are just going to keep releasing more stuff. I think that make it easier. It makes it easier for these smaller spending customers to actually get to grips with Google Ads.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you think like Google is thinking about evolving that interface for its customers? Like kind of familiar with like what it looks like now and where it's been over the past, like as they kind of get into more of eventually advertising within AI, do you have any sense of like what that's going to look like? Is it going to be more objective based? Like how do you think that world is going to look like for what Google is going to give you as an interface?
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think Google's always, it's sometimes had the rep of being one of the harder ad platforms to learn. There's just more going on. There's just more going on.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing search. There's just more going on. It's not as easy as just like on Meta, you upload a creative, hey,
yeah, you see the picture, you figure out the audience.
Exactly. So Google's a bit more complicated. I think they've definitely done some good things in terms of, at least from my perspective, making the UI easier and clearer over the years. It's actually a problem we even have at Groas, to be honest, for some of our, let's say, smaller spending self-serve customers who log on like, oh wow, like there's a lot going on here as well. Like, how do I figure this out? I think it's always a work in progress. That I don't think we'll ever get to a point where, I mean, maybe we do. Maybe we do get to a point in 5 years where you just upload your website, set a budget, and say, go find me customers. Maybe.
Yeah.
At that point, everyone's in trouble.
Yeah, like because I part of a, like you mentioned, Facebook or Meta, right? Like you have from an interface perspective, it's very clear. You upload, you see the creative, you can literally visualize the ad in someone's feed, right? You're kind of like, oh, this is what I am putting as a bit of creative and content in someone's feed, right? And then when you get to Google, okay, it's less visual, but you still have this same mental model of like, okay, this is the text where if someone is searching for this keyword, I will show up and it's going to look like this. Okay. But then in LLM world, let's say someone is they're going to Google, they're searching, they're seeing that AI snippet, or maybe they're asking Gemini for something or otherwise with it. That to me, at least, feels very different because I'm not sure what Google shows me. Like it's hard for me to think of, like, let's say I want to advertise my brand and my product. How is that going to show in the LLM response? That might be very different depending on how the user, the customer who is coming in, the end user, let's say, who's coming in and is asking a question to that LLM. It might depend on what that prompt is, what the context of the conversation is, or otherwise how that's actually presented. But I might not know as an advertiser how my brand is going to be represented in that response. Is that like scary to you? Is that scary to your customers to just kind of be like, well, I'm kind of throwing money at this, but I don't even know what it's going to look like? Or, am I missing something here? It seems like that's kind of a scary aspect to jump off the cliff and be like, I'm just going to pay Google and I'm not even sure what it's going to look like, when it actually gets served to that end customer.
You're very right. And it is scary to me and also our actual customers, because ultimately I think that is, I mean, Google's already making a slow transition now to keywordless advertising.
Okay. Say a little more about that. Say a little bit more. What is that, and what do you think is going on there?
I mean, so it's changed a lot, right? I think so. I mean, let's go back 10 years. 10 years ago, you would tell Google, hey, only show my ad for these exact search terms, right? And you'd like whatever, 5 or 10, And Google
Yep.
would only show your ad for those exact search terms, whatever. They
Yep.
then now have broad match, phrase match, exact match. But the
Yep.
problem is that exact match today is not actually exact.
Mhm.
So you say, hey, show my ad for exactly this. It's going to show up as something that it thinks is similar, whatever. So
Yeah.
they've kept on like broadening out
Yep.
whatever you upload to them and just saying, hey, look, we showed it anyway because we thought it might be relevant. Obviously, that's great for Google
Yep.
because it costs you dollars, right? It
Yep.
spends the budget, and that's ultimately like how Google makes their money. So
Yep.
that, so they also they constantly push broad match.
Mhm.
You're on a campaign, Google's going to say, hey, look, use broad match. Now, I'm not here to speak badly about broad match. Sometimes it works really hard. It just
Yeah.
depends. But I don't think
Yeah.
it's one size fits all. But it's very clear, I think, that Google is now going to go towards keywordless advertising. And that's what they're going to try and include in their new AI Search Max eventually, which is, hey, look, you upload your website,
Yep.
maybe you give it some context as to what you want to search up for, to come up for, and then it does it for you.
Yeah.
That's scary. That is very scary, I think, as an advertiser. Very scary.
Yeah. Scary in that it feels like you're throwing money at it and waiting to see what happens kind of thing. Like, is that's the scary part? Or because you're going to know if it's working or not, right, over some time horizon. But what's most scary about that to you?
You have no control. That
Okay.
is Google's way ultimately of removing the advertiser's control.
Yeah.
So
Do you
also,
think some of your customers would prefer that or not? Like walk me through, like, just think about some of the customers that you deal with, and maybe there's some of the ones that are more vocal or less vocal or otherwise. Like, in that world, how do you think your customers would react? Like, it's just generally people that are spending money and serious about paid advertisement on Google. Do you think some of them would revolt? Would kind of say, like, this is like, I really don't like it, and I'm looking for other channels. Do you think some would maybe lean into it even more? Like, how do you think that plays out?
so I don't want to again overgeneralize. I
Yeah.
think
Well, let's say maybe they might be a couple different categories here. You don't need to talk about anyone specifically, but what do you think that landscape looks like?
I think those that are more basically those that are newer to Google Ads will say, "Hey, great! Look, Google can do it for me."
Yeah.
Those who are more experienced and probably spending more serious budgets and kind of know what they're doing more, and I see it already,
Yeah.
they're not that happy with that.
Okay.
So it's tough. It's really interesting. I think what's happening right now. I mean, Google are really in this is a big shift that they're having to navigate. Very big shift, I think.
Okay, David, let me just play hypothetical here. Let's say you run the search business for Google, right? And you're also a big shareholder, right? You're trying to think about, like, how to do this, how to manage this. What would you be doing differently? Like, would you be pushing faster into replacing traditional search with AI or not? Do you think they're kind of doing it at the right speed? Like, if you were making the calls here, what would you be doing?
Yeah, it's tough. But I mean, ultimately, everyone has also like a different, I think, personality profile in terms of their openness to risk and stuff. But let's just say that was actually the case, and I was there. Me personally, I'm a big believer in failing fast. Right, so
Okay.
you always hear that failing fast, whatever. But you, I'm a big believer in life and like not delaying the inevitable. Like
Hmm.
what's going to happen is for sure, Google is now going to switch to a more conversational type of thing. So we should
Yeah.
be doing that right now, even
Yeah.
if we don't even yet figure out how to integrate ads well into that, so that ads perform and people keep spending money with us. We
Yeah.
should do that now and like
Yeah.
take the bruises, take the hits,
Yeah.
and quickly. Hopefully, we can then figure out like what to do and like how to
Yeah.
make it work. But I think ultimately they're still a very big company, so
Hmm.
can't they move slower. They can't take those big
Yeah.
risks that they could from all those years ago. They have a million people to please, like et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think
I'm in
that
the same I think I'm in the same boat as you. I think that there's like a middle ground here that's kind of dangerous, right? Of like doing certain things but not moving fast enough. And I think the speed, it's the classic innovator's dilemma. You really want to get to a point where you're pushing the envelope rather than other people are kind of doing it for you. Is there any logic? Has there been any sort of discussion that you've seen around the idea of, like, spinning off Google's traditional search business, let's say, keeping that as a separate property and then just focusing on conversational AI? Or, do you think that's pretty harebrained, and that most of the people are kind of thinking like this is just going to be classic, go to google.com and eventually it becomes conversational?
Yeah, I think it's probably the second option. I think it
Yep.
eventually has to become conversational. Probably another thing I do as well, like if I'm in that position, I would immediately launch a competitor to the LLMs, but that is paid. So there's no ads on
Hmm.
there. Um,
Hmm.
that we don't plan on running ads, but at least we'll just learn more. I think they released AI mode to some
Hmm.
users. I'm kind of using that, but I think that's probably what I would do. Just to you need to just get things in front of users. Like that. That's always been my philosophy.
Yeah.
ASAP.
Yeah.
Move quick and then you'll figure it out. But obviously, the stakes for Google are so much higher, so they can't really make the same mistakes that others can.
Yeah. So let's go to the AI to AI advertising concept, right? If Google's basically saying, okay, we're moving to essentially keywordless, it's a black box, but let's assume it works, right? That clients are putting in money, customers are putting in money, and they're getting a good return on that ad spend, but it feels like there's not that much control. And then on the flip side, you've got Perplexity and Comet, let's say, and maybe Google's going to have their own browser, but let's also just say like ChatGPT and OpenAI are going to roll out their own browser. I think that's probably coming relatively soon. In that sort of world where you tell Comet or you tell OpenAI's browser, hey, go find me X, whatever the product is, I want a new set of golf clubs or whatever it is, and they're out there looking and they're doing all the research for you. How do you kind of think about that world where it is an agent, let's say through the browser, that's going out, and then on the other side of things, you've got the kind of traditional Google search where people are advertising to them? Like, how does that interface work? And how are the two agents on either side going to make that transaction possible, or come back to you with like a short list of things that you would buy that would meet those needs?
Yeah, that's tough. I think so. What you're saying, one agent go open in the browser, searches an ad
It's
pops up. They can choose to ignore it or read it.
or just like let's maybe say it another way. Let's say I'm trying to buy something, you're trying to sell something. What I go out and do is like I have an agent,
Yeah.
and that's maybe through Perplexity. And I tell my agent, hey, I'm trying to buy a new golf driver, let's say. I want you to go out and do all the research and figure out, watch a bunch of YouTube videos and figure out like what are the three that, and give me your recommendations and all this sort of stuff on it and figure all that out and come back to me with that. And let's say you on the other side, David, you are the seller, you've got golf clubs
Yeah.
to sell, and you're like, hey, I want to make sure that I'm in front of everybody that is ever like looking and researching whatever it is. I'm going to build, I've got this agent and it's going to make sure that it's advertising in all the right places and having these conversations with the LLMs that are
Mm,
looking for it. Right. And so you've got like David's agent on one side trying to sell this
yeah.
product. You've got Arnold's agent on the other side trying to go out and help me buy it. What is that interface? How do those two meet? And does this all go like crazy with agents talking to each other?
Yeah, I think it comes back to content is king. Content is everything.
Yeah.
That you have to get your content out there. That is the most important thing. I think now and going to the future, like your ability to distribute that content effectively is going to be the most important thing. So it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning. Things like Reddit, Quora. Like
Hmm.
if this was actually me trying to do this, I would be going crazy on Reddit. I'd be going crazy on Quora. I'd be
Yeah.
getting famous YouTubers who are expert in golf clubs to
Yeah.
do views on that. I
Yeah.
think LLMs seem to really prioritize general user sentiment. Like, what are
Mm,
people generally saying? What are the
yeah.
overall? They quite like that.
Yeah.
Rather than, again, it goes back to like me just writing a blog post on my own website saying, "Hey, this
Yeah.
is the stuff." It has a pretty good understanding of what is useful information and what isn't. What is promotional
Yeah.
versus what seems to be what genuine users are saying.
Yeah.
Um, So I think
Yeah.
that is going to be really important. Basically, being able finding a way, whether fraudulent or not, of getting to speak really well about your product or service is that's going to be really crucial. I think.
So maybe to play this analogy out, and I think I agree with where you're going with this. Like, it's essentially like if I've got my agent and I've sent them out, hey, go help me to buy this, go figure this out for me. That agent is probably going to, like, let's say like
Course. Golf
yeah,
course.
like it's going to, there's going to be some interface, some place for it
Yeah.
where it is checking everything.
Yeah.
And what your agent who's on the selling side of it should be thinking of is like, you're basically saying, hey, help me to get my message out in all of these different places. So I'm not like going directly to the LLMs, but I'm trying to be as smart as possible about putting my content out in the places where they're going to be looking for that, and where that sits. So you're kind of, it's almost like you're tagging,
Yeah.
or like you're kind of going around like you would with like if you knew like graffiti near a train station. I mean, not like in a bad way or otherwise, but you're putting your art out there, you're putting your content out there in a place where you know that later on that day there's going to be a bunch of people like passing through,
Yeah.
rather than like trying to speak to each one of them individually. It's more like kind of creating that art and putting that on display in a place that you know is going to be high traffic.
Yeah, actually, another thing on that is LLMs don't always give the same sources. Like you give the same exact question, it might find
Yeah.
one time, and that's kind of the
Yeah.
point of LLM. It's still a black box.
Yeah,
So
it's determinist. Like it's not it's not going to necessarily kind of say like, oh, it's always the same answer every single time. And so trying to kind of navigate that in a way where
yeah,
you have some flexibility built in.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Okay, I like that, David. I think that's a good way to think about it. I think ultimately, do you think that consumers, like end customers, are going to have like a better experience buying products online in the next couple of years? Like if you kind of think about what that looked like a few years back of searching and ads and kind of going through that, do you think that the world with LLMs will look better for consumers, and that it'll be easier to find the sorts of products that really are good for them?
Truthfully, yes. Truthfully, yes.
Yeah.
I think it's the battle is going to be with the advertisers and kind
Okay.
of Google and all these platforms. We're going to have to figure out how to get it right. But truthfully, yes, I think because
Okay.
especially like when you're looking for something, you don't always know exactly what you're looking for immediately, right? And so
Yeah.
that sort of question answer type format where you can input these, you can give it a lot of context as to exactly what you're after.
Yeah.
You can give it feedback. These are things that weren't present. That have never been present in search. In search,
Yeah.
golf clubs, you search golf clubs, it just brings you golf clubs. But maybe you want particular size, particular this. So the short answer is I think it's definitely a lot better for the consumer, but the advertiser I think is going to have to figure out a way of playing well, because it's going to be a lot more tricky, I think.
Yeah. Do you think that advertisers are ready for the pace of change? Do you think that it seems to me like, especially over the past 8, 9 months, I think in particular, like really since January or so, like as the AI has moved faster, from a perspective, and I think most people who are builders in tech have noticed that. I think Claude Code, for example, like really developing quickly. I think we've all gotten more used to just how fast things are moving. Do you think the typical advertiser is ready for the fact that things might be upended very quickly, and that things that they kind of relied on or channels that they thought were kind of more stable might change much faster? Or or do you think there just hasn't been that sort of adjustment yet until that happens?
Honestly, no. I think a lot of people are not ready. I see it again from, I can just speak to our existing customers. We have some very big
Yeah.
spenders who know what they're doing with Google Ads, right?
Yeah.
I think we're now at more than $20 million a month of spend, 25.
Yeah.
So we have some very big spenders, and I'm very close to some of them. And a lot of people just like, this is crazy what we're seeing. Like, this is not even just, forget grass campaigns, just like
Yeah.
other campaigns that they're running. So I think a lot of them are not prepared. It's going to be a very interesting time. A very interesting time.
Yeah.
We're like grass as well, just trying to navigate it too. We're just trying to figure out a way of.
Yeah. Do you think that gives more of an advantage to like newcomers and like new entrants? Like, are new brands that you're seeing or like coming up, maybe because they haven't kind of been established in channels or otherwise, like, do they have any sort of advantage over people that have been doing a lot of advertising? Or are you not seeing that?
I think it's tough if you're a new brand today. Ultimately, again, it always just depends on what you're selling, like what niche you're in. At the start, and it's true, you can run up some serious numbers just with paid ads. But ultimately, if you want true profitability and to maximize them and make something real longer term, organic is always going to be, I think, the most important. So, yeah, look, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's definitely, I think, a tumultuous time for a lot of people.
Okay.
But the way out, I think, will, like, in 3-4 years from now, I think it's going to look really remarkable. What advertising looks like, it's going to be,
Yeah.
it's going to look really cool. That's why I
So
think.
let's buckle up. It should be fun. Yeah. Okay, I've got another question. We'll shift gears a little bit on, I think, just want to ask you a little bit about like the tech ecosystem in general. If you look at startups and like, let's just limit it to private startups, is there a company that you see that really you feel is pretty undervalued in the market now, that you feel like maybe isn't getting either the attention, or you just feel like the valuation is relatively low compared to how much you think they might crush it over the next 3 or 4 years?
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of making predictions. I'm always cautious of what I say, but
Okay.
I think Perplexity, we've touched on quite a bit actually throughout this podcast, is probably, I
Yeah.
would say, undervalued,
Yeah.
simply because if they become one of those key players in this sort of AI to AI agent e-commerce sort of sphere that we were talking about, then their valuation just, it's 10 what it's worth now. I think right now it's worth about 10 billion or something like that.
Yeah. They're closer. I think they're getting closer to 20, like off of just some later, like new private funding. But yeah, I mean, still well under that 100 mark.
Yeah, and they actually, unlike Google, who haven't, I don't know if they've moved that fast yet. They've also set up some publisher relationships as well, like getting those people paid out. So those are steps like in the really right direction, I think. So I'd say, but if they can pull it off, basically, it is undervalued. That's what I would say.
Tell me a little bit more about the publisher relationships and like what have you seen Perplexity do? Why do you think that that's kind of the winning strategy there?
So yeah, they're basically setting up revenue shares. The same thing that Google did with YouTube,
Okay.
paying
Yeah.
people out, right, for
Yeah.
what views they get.
Hmm.
Perplexity seems to have been doing this already. Whereas now, and this is why Google does need to act quick, is with the AI overview stuff,
Hmm.
it's taking away a lot of traffic from those old, like, big blog post people publishers who used to get all that
Yeah.
AdSense, all those AdSense clicks.
Hmm.
So they seem to have moved quickly on that, and I think that's definitely a big advantage to them.
Okay. How does that help? Like, how does that help on the customer side? Like, let's say just you and I as users coming in, do I care that Perplexity has that happening or not? Like, how does that create a better experience? Let's say for you and I just going in and using it.
It's true. I think ultimately content, right?
Okay.
If you incentivize people to make better content, then
Yeah.
it's always going to be a better experience, I think, for the user.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I've seen, I think from my perspective, I've seen some stuff which is more current or like live or
mm,
otherwise with it. And it probably is coming from that in some sense, or like, so they have clear partnerships and that some of that matters. Like if you get into like the finance space or otherwise, like of earnings calls or things like that, where it's like, oh, it's actually like happening now and they've got the content for it. It's not like the next day it shows up.
sure.
So I think maybe there's like some advantages there with it, but no, interesting to see, I guess, from your perspective, that's a bigger driver.
For
But
sure.
yeah, I'm pretty bullish on Perplexity overall. I think even as well too, like even if they never really got to kind of where I think they could compete with Google, even if they never got to that point, I think even some of the verticals that they're actually operating in, like
Yeah.
I know in finance, for example, like they have built out a lot of the real-time information where it's a lot more cost effective than like getting a Bloomberg terminal.
Mm, of
Let's say, I'm not sure, in private equity, if you ever use those, but like
course.
that, like that's obviously like a major investment. But I think there's a lot of people that would use the Perplexity tools for finance that are, real time or close to it. And
Yeah.
I know that in the US, like they bring in like Morningstar research and other things like that to me. And Bloomberg is like over $100 billion of value right then and there. So like to me, the downside cases for Perplexity of just even if it was only successful in, let's say, one, major but significant vertical, they could grow into a pretty high valuation then and there. But I do think they're onto something with Comet. I think I just have to see a little bit of what happens with OpenAI and their browser, how that knocks it out. But I think Perplexity's got a credible, credible pathway that definitely makes it pretty interesting.
Okay.
Okay, let's flip this around. I'm also curious if there's a tech company or startup that you think is pretty overvalued or overhyped today. Who would that be?
Again, I want to be very careful with what I say.
Okay.
Famous last words. I wouldn't say overhyped, but maybe overvalued. And again, not here trying to throw shade because again,
Yep.
I know some people.
Hey, we're all builders. We know how hard it is and whatnot. But maybe let's just say that maybe it has gotten out a little bit ahead of their valuation.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a company in mind. I'll say the negative, but also there's also I think a lot of positive to say. The name it's Anthropic. I don't know exactly what they're valued at now. I think it's 40 billion.
Yeah, I think 170 or so or thereabouts.
Okay,
is like where they're trying to raise. I mean, I don't know if the round's getting done or otherwise, but like I think you're looking at around that 150 billion mark or so.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Then I would definitely.
There you go. Okay, that pushes you over. That pushes you over the edge. Okay. What do you think about Anthropic that makes it overvalued? What do you think what are you seeing that other people might be missing here?
I just think they're in like a really tough space, right? Because as we know, LLMs keep getting better, but they also keep getting more and more commoditized and cheaper. There's a lot of entrants, so not only just from like the private company side, open source LLMs are now starting to get also very, very powerful.
Yeah.
So they're trying to compete with that, competing against Zuck, Elon, Altman. I mean, it's not easy. Now I say all this at the same time. I think, particularly on the creative writing side, like I actually use it for that sometimes. It's really, really strong. I think it's probably the strongest model in my experience for writing good creative.
Yeah.
But the issue is that's the case for 1 month, and then next month, like Grok 5 comes out, and it's even more powerful because it's got maybe data on how to write well. So I think that they are probably the ones who I would say maybe are valued. Again, just such a tough space they're in. Having to burn a lot of money probably training these models. Yeah.
I think the bull case for that. So I think it's obviously very competitive space, but I think if I was bullish on them, the things I would really think towards are that they have some sort of established presence within enterprise. And I think it's almost like they're just seeding saying like, okay, ChatGPT's got consumer. We're going to, and maybe Google will make a play. Maybe Facebook will make a play. Obviously XAI has got something going there with Grok. Like I do like the models for that. But I think that kind of coming to your first point of like, there's something, I use Claude quite a bit. I think there's something in the tone, the way of the writing that is clearly best in class for that. And that if they're able to kind of go and keep that type of lead, I think that is valuable to a lot of corporations. And so like when you get into certain enterprise applications, it might just be that the value of being like incrementally better a little bit there actually unlocks like a lot of enterprises that'll just pay up for that, with it. But that's the bullish case for them.
It's tough. And even on the enterprise side though, there's ChatGPT, which again went to work at HIG Capital. We ended up there's the enterprise is ChatGPT is definitely making a big step, and also Microsoft Copilot, which there's kind of almost the same thing. I don't know if it is, I don't know whatever you want to call that, but
let's assume the underlying models might have a lot of similarity there.
So they seem to be the ones really dominating enterprise from what I'm seeing, just from what I'm hearing. But you are right, again, especially from a creative writing perspective. It's really, really good. Really good.
No, I mean, look, I think for especially in your position, a lot of other builders, like I view myself in the same way. We hopefully just benefit from a lot of that competition, right? The more models coming out, I mean, it was great to see, OpenAI open source model that like actually fits on my computer and whatnot. Like I think it's just going to be very cool to see a lot of that sort of stuff develop, and I think open up a lot more that that we can kind of build effectively. So I'm cheering for kind of just a lot of competition in that area.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Okay. Awesome. Well, David, this was a ton of fun. I really appreciate you taking the time.